Good morning. Hello, jewelry makers. Thank you for joining me. This is Tracy at TierraCast, and we're getting very Christmassy today with our demo. I'm wearing a little bit of Christmas jewelry. You know, it's getting to be that time. These are fun. I demoed these, find the camera, last year. So if you're interested in those, check our social media pages. I just posted about them the other day, and there's links to the project. But today's demo is, let's see if I can get these somehow on a board where I can show them all three at the same time. These are classic TierraCast Christmas designs. They're so classic that we can't really remember who designed them. So they've been around the shop for a very long time. And even at one time, I'm just going to try and get them in close. So you can see that there's the candy cane earrings, the silver bell earrings, and the what we call ribbons and wreaths earrings. And I've got links to all three that I can put into the comments, which I will do now. We are streaming live both on YouTube and Facebook. So if you're a YouTube watcher, please pipe in. We like to make sure that we've only been streaming to YouTube for a little while. We like to make sure that you're getting all the stuff that you're supposed to be. You're seeing everything you're supposed to be seeing. I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera. I think I was saying these designs. Once upon a time, all three of them were kits, and they were pretty fun little kits. We don't produce those ones any longer, but they're very approachable and easy designs. All three of them feature our bow beads, and all three of them feature 4mm crystal beads. So, and they're sparkly. That, you know, what makes that nice is it gives your holiday jewelry a little bit of sparkle, which is really nice. And we love our bow beads. They're something that we've been making for a long time, and they're very, very popular. They're great little beads. See if I can get them close enough and also with light. Always such a trick. Get everything showing up good for you guys. So our bow beads are popular. We love them. All three of these feature those beads. So that's why I thought it would be kind of fun to do them all at the same time. Hi, Leslie, and hello, MC. I'm not sure if that's what I should call you, MC. But thank you for popping in. You can always, of course, come back. That's what's wonderful about live streams is you have the option of watching the replay anytime. So, and again, on Facebook or YouTube. So that's great. So I have printed out, you know, we don't make these three designs as kits anymore, but they're all available on our website. I just posted the links. They all have downloadable project sheets. I'm noticing that there needs to be some updating to all three of those, but that's fine. I'll get to that eventually. The updates don't affect the making the designs. It's just other little things that need to be updated. And I just heard a little bing telling me I got an email. So let me shut down my email program so that we don't get that anymore. So much to juggle when you're doing this stuff. The last remaining link that I had set up for you guys is, you know, we are a wholesale manufacturer, so we don't sell direct to the public. So I've included I've included a link to our store locator page. Hello, Nancy. Hi, Elise. So if you're a retail shopper, you go to this link and you can find stores both online and I guess they're mostly online now. There may be a brick and mortar or two listed, but yeah, you'll find those customers of ours listed on that store locator page. So let's start with the candy canes because that's the one that I originally wanted to demonstrate just because I think they're my favorite little holiday design that we do. So I'm just kind of pulling off stuff that we don't need so that we can demo just the candy canes. So here they are. Our candy cane, I can speak. These are our candy cane earrings. I think I was saying they're kind of vintage TierraCast so long ago that we're not really sure who designed them. So we just on the sheet we just put TierraCast because everybody's like, oh, I don't remember who designed those. I don't remember. So these are pretty fun to put together. You do need 24 gauge wire. So we're going to use our 24 gauge head pins. I got them out in both silver and gold. You can also use craft wire. I have some soft flex 24 gauge. Again, you want some 24 gauge. It needs to be quite flexible, of course, to make the little loop, the hook at the top. So the first thing I want to do is I want to choose a pair of ear wires, and I think I'll demo a gold one and then I'll demo a silver one. So let's choose a little gold ear wire. I've always traditionally made these candy cane earrings in silver. I guess that was the original design, and so that's what I've tended to stick with. But I don't see why we can't do it in gold, so that's what I'm going to do. We can take this down off of there so we can see all the screen. So I've got this 24 gauge ear wire. What's nice about those is how flexible they are. Whoops, I lost my place already. I got out the ear wire because there's something important we need to do. I'm going to turn the loop. So I'm taking the loop of the ear wire and I'm just going to grab it with a pair of chain nose pliers. And then I'm going to grab the rest of the hoop of the ear wire and just turn the pliers perpendicular to each other. So I'm just turning that loop so that it's facing forward. That way, when I attach it to the earring, the earring is going to get face forward. And I could attach that ear wire directly to the top of the candy cane, but I like a little bit of distance between the candy cane and the ear wire. So I'm adding a jump ring, and that's why we had to rotate the hoop. You could, like I said, add the loop of the ear wire directly to the earring, and then you would not need to change the orientation of the hoop. But we're going for the turning of the hoop style. So the next thing I need to do is pick up my head pin of my 24 gauge wire. Let's get this out of the way. Hopefully I've made these enough where I can remember how to do it. I also, for these earrings, we need some 3mm crystal beads and some 4mm crystal beads, both in red. And then we need some white 4mm crystal beads. These are called alabaster. I think they're an AB even, alabaster AB. And for each earring, you need 8 of the 4mm crystals in the red and 8 of the alabaster crystals. I'm sorry, I might have said for each earring, but that's the total for both earrings. So 8 of each of the red, 8 each of the white, and just 2 of the little 3mm. And then we're going to need a couple of tiny little like size 6 round seed beads. I have some metallic ones here in both gold and silver. And then let's see if I can remember how to do this. So I've got my ear wire prepared. I've got my 24 gauge head pin. And the first thing I'm going to do is pick up one of these little jump rings, slide that all the way down to the bottom. And then I'm going to start picking up the 4mm crystals. So I'm going to start with a red and a white and a red. And then I'm going to pick up a bow bead. And then I'm going to keep going with an alternating colors. So I'm picking up a white because my last one was a red. So I'm picking up a white. Oops, red. white, I can get it, red. Now I'm noticing something. That little 2mm, that little head pin, sorry, little size 11 seed bead fell right off the, I thought it fell off, but it's still there. Okay. That of course is something to watch out for. If the whatever you're using, the head pin, want to make sure the little head at the bottom is wide enough to hold whatever the beads you're working with. So back to red, white, red, bow bead. White, red. White, red, and I'm finishing with a white 4mm. So it's red, white, red, white, red, white, red, white. And then the last little bead is going to be that 3mm. And that's just so it's a slightly smaller little bead to finish the design off with. I'm actually imagining as we do these designs and then later on they might change a little bit. I'm actually imagining that this little bead down here at the bottom is optional. I am going to need another one of those at the top. Once I've got all of those beads strung, I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm going to grab that wire, the head pin, with the chain nose pliers so that there's going to be about 3mm between that last bead and a fold that I'm going to make right there. And that's going to hopefully keep my beads from sliding off. As I now kind of form a little loop, a little hook in the wire. I have an awl that's just got a kind of a small round handle. And I think that might make a good little mandrel for me. So this is why you need the 4mm, 24 gauge wire, because it's very soft and flexible. And that 3mm of space between the last bead. Whoops, I did lose that little gold bead. Come back. Came around the bend and fell off. I might have to, adding that on before I'd make the curve might just backfire. I might have to, if it falls off again, I'll just add it at the end. So now what I'm doing is I'm forming my little hook of my candy cane. And I'm going about that carefully. I don't want to crack my beads. That 3mm of space between the last bead and the bend is so that there's enough room in the wire to be able to bend it and the crystals will have room to move. You don't want to bend it with no room between the crystals because you'll crack your crystals. So that looks like a pretty good little hook. And then I'm going to pick up that little gold bead that kept falling off. See if I can get that back on there. And then I'm going to take some round nose pliers and I'm going to work right at the end, and I'm just going to make a little coil. I'm working right at the end because I don't want the loop to be big. I just want it to be little. So as little as I can get it. And that little loop is going to hold everything together. And then I can take some flat nose pliers, or claws with the flat. They don't have to be flat nose. Just need to be chain nose or bent nose or something with the flat surface on the inside of the jaws. And I'm straightening that little loop, and I'm also kind of adjusting my hook. And it's looking pretty good. I'm happy with it. I'm trying to maintain that little coil I made at the end of my wire too. And that is one candy cane earring. So now that room that we left, that 3 millimeters or so of room between the last bead and the bend in the wire also allows some space, so I can come in here now and take the jump ring that's on the bottom that's attached to my earring hook, and I can pop that right over the candy cane in between a couple of the beads at the top there. So that space that you leave in there is important. And that's it. That's our first little candy cane bead in gold. And I don't know why I've never really made them in gold before. It's darn cute, I think. Can't really get a great focus. Let's move those. But that looks pretty nice, I think, in gold. And so then, of course, we just do the second one. I do like the idea of trying it with craft wire, because you may not have 24 gauge head pins sitting around. So I'm just going to use, I cut about 6 inches of craft wire. And it's not a head pin, obviously, so I need to make a little head pin sort of thing. So I'm just going to, using again the very tips of my round nose pliers, I'm going to make a little coil at one end of this wire. Just going to coil it around about 3 times. And I hope this works, because I'm not an expert at this little making a head pin thing. I'm always experimenting every time I do it. So tips welcome. I'm gathering up my beads here that I'm going to use for the second pair of the second candy cane. Get those all ready for us. So I've got a little coil of beads, and I'm going to take the end of this wire and just thread it through that coil. And then I'm going to pull the wire through. And if I'm doing it right, again, I'm not an expert at this. This will make, once I pull this all the way through, it'll kind of make a little head pin. There's a name for these, but I'm not sure what it is. I'm actually going to grab the wire with a second pair of pliers right there above the coil. And as I pull that all the way through, it should just makes a little end for that wire. I'm going to use some the front notch of some crimping pliers to kind of tidy that up a little bit. Kind of makes a little knot. Not an expert at that, but it really is a super useful little tool, a super useful little technique for when you want to make a head pin with craft wire. All right, so I have a little knot. It's a little bigger than I would like, but I'm gonna leave it. I'm not gonna start again. And I'm going to do my pattern again. So I'm starting with a little gold seed bead. Now, because this little head pin takes up more visual weight, I could skip that little bead. I don't really need it, because this little bottom of my head pin is got weight to it. So, and that was the purpose of the little gold head pin. So the little gold seed bead. So let's just skip it. Starting to bead on my pattern. It's 3 beads, red, white, red, and then the bow bead. And then I repeat that red, white, red, white, red, white almost 3 times. The last one is a 3mm bead. Let's see, where are we? One more red, one more white, and then the little 3mm, and then the little gold seed bead. Get those all down there. And this, craft wire is pretty darn flexible. So this one will actually be easier. It will be easier to bend our wire. I'm again making sure all my beads are all the way down, and I'm giving myself about 3mm of space in between that last bead and the bend I'm making here. And that bend in theory is going to hold everything on, but we know already that the little seed beads are going to fall off. But I wanted it there when I made my bend to make sure it was included in the beads, you know, the length of the beads. All right, so let's get that back on there. And I cut more than I needed. I think possibly even twice as much. So I'm just going to cut some of that off. And then I'm going to work again with the very front of my chain round nose pliers and make a little loop. This is soft enough now that I'm using the craft wire. With the head pin, I just made a little loop and I coiled it around a couple times. You could also just do a little wrapped loop here. So let's do that since the craft wire is nice and soft. Let's just do a tiny little wrapped loop. The trick here is you don't want to wrap and take up a whole bunch of your space on your wire. Don't wrap too much because you still need to be able to bend your wire to make your hook. All right, looking pretty good. I did not prepare my ear wire, so I'm going to do that again. Going to grab the hook of the loop of the ear wire and just give that a little turn. And then I'm going to add the very small little 4mm oval jump ring to the bottom. Oops, and since I've already got the earring done, I'm not going to close that jump ring. I'm just going to go ahead and thread it on to the candy cane. All right, where's my other one? There it is. So there you go. 2 little candy cane earrings. I think that those look really nice in gold. I like it very much. So that's how easy the candy cane earrings are. They're really fun. You know, something else I wanted to try. I think I'll try, if we have time afterwards, I did get out some size 6 seed beads. I thought it might be fun to try these with seed beads, but we might need to wait and see how our how much time we end up with, because we still have 2 more pairs of earrings to demonstrate. So I can move all of the candy cane earring stuff off to the side. We'll go to the ribbons and wreath earrings next. And again, I need some 24 gauge craft wire for this one. And, you know, we mixed up the candy canes and decided to do them in gold. And this design is in silver, but, you know, let's keep with the theme. Let's mix this up and we'll make the ribbons and wreaths in silver. If I can find the end of my wire, will be great. You do need actual wire for this one. Head pins are going to be too short. You need about 5 inches of wire per earring. Come on, find me an end. We might end up sticking with the gold if this thing doesn't get cooperative. All right, sticking with the gold. Forget all that talk about mixing things up. So, so for these earrings, you want a couple of bow beads. You want a 5-inch piece of 24 gauge craft wire per earring. You want some green 4mm crystals. Look at this. I'm noticing I must have made these 2 ribbons and wreaths earrings at different times because I've got different colored crystals in there. One is like clearly the emerald, and this one looks more like a fern green. But there's a lot of greens to choose from. So what I've got here is the emerald, and each earring is going to need 10 crystals in the red, and it's also going to need 10 crystals in the green, and it's also going to need a red crystal. And it's also a fun little something that you'll need for this project is a mandrel. So I'm just using a Sharpie. It's just about the right diameter for the hoop that I want. So I'm also going to need, maybe that's it. I thought I needed the little tiny seed beads, but I don't think I do. So I'm picking up a piece of the wire, and I'm making a right angle bend right at the center. So I'm going 90-degree bend right there. And then I'm going to take this Sharpie that I'm using as a mandrel, and I'm going to turn one side of this into just a big loop. And I don't want it to be a tight loop. I can tighten up that round shape after we get the bead strung on. The next thing I'm going to do is string all 10 of the green crystals onto the wire. And oops. Okay, here's a don't do what I just did. We don't want to string it onto the end that's got the bend in it. We want to string it onto the end that's going to feed into that loop. So take them all off and string them onto the other end of the wire. Once again, I probably gave myself a little bit more wire than I needed. I didn't measure, but 5 inches should be plenty for this project. Getting there. One more. And then all of those wires, or all those crystals, just fall down into that loop, and that's your wreath. And to finish that off, I'm just going to pull the end of this over to the wire that's bent so it's sticking straight up. I'm going to pull my loop around so that it's right there at that bend, and just wrap it around a couple times. And then I can trim that off. And again, I'm going to use the front notch. This is my little secret weapon for wrapped loops, is I use the front notch of a small pair of crimping pliers to tuck that end in, that wire end in. All right, so we have a wreath. Next thing we need to do is string on the one red crystal and the bow bead. Bring those all the way down so they sit right above your wreath. And then we're going to secure that with another wrapped loop. So I'm going to make a bend here, but I'm not going to make it right at the top of the bow bead, because I want a little bit of room for my wire wrap. So I'm just giving it like about 2 millimeters. And then I'm going to take my round nose pliers and just finish that with a little wrapped loop. And I went, I think, just twice around down at that other wrapped loop. So, you can be particular, and you can kind of make it matchy. Or if you're the more rustic look with your wire wrapping, you can certainly do that too. And then just trim that off. Okay. And then I'm tidying up that loop, and I'm spinning that so that it's sitting in the same direction as my as the round of the wreath. I want the loop to be facing the same direction, so parallel to. And then a near wire. And that is it for the ribbons and wreaths. You can see how easy that is. So sorry I didn't get to do the silver one. Let's try it. Look, I found the end of my wire. Little technical hurdles. So I'm cutting about 5 inches of the silver just so that we can do a silver version. I'm noticing that there's a couple of little 4mm round green gemstone beads in there that somehow got into my crystals. We don't need those right now. So again, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You could do these loops a little bit larger. I'm actually going to show you a little variation here when we're done. Oops. And I'm jumping the gun. What I need to do here that I skipped is I wanted to fold this wire up, right? So I've got, this is going to be my bow, the length of wire that gets the bow bead and finishes with the wrapped loop. So let's continue. Once I got my little loop made, then I can start stringing on my wreath crystals. And again, it would be fun maybe to add a couple more crystals so the hoop is a little bit bigger. Not necessary. The original design calls for 10. It also might be fun with this design to add a little tiny accent bead in between the green crystals. So it could be a little silver, depending on what metal you're working with. It could be a little silver or gold. Size 11 seed bead. That might be a fun. Dress up the wreath a little bit. So then once I've got my 10 beads on there, I want to make sure that the very first bead of the wreath is all the way tucked up next to that, next to the fold. And then I can get that other tail up there and wrap the wire. I do want to make sure I don't end up with space between my beads. But still, it'll sit right up at the, it will sit, the beads will kind of move down around the lower part of the hoop. So if there's a little bit of wire showing in your wreath, it will be at the top. So it shouldn't show too much. Got that wrapped around a few times. Tuck that off. And then I can string on the red. And a bow bead. And then again, when I fold this wire above the bow bead, I want to give myself a little bit of room. Don't fold it right at the top of the bead. Give yourself a little bit of room for the wire wrapping. I like how the as you're wrapping with these bow beads, the bead just spins around and allows you to move your wire. All right. There we go. There's the silver version. I like that. That's very pretty. Hello, Kimberly. She says, hi, and thanks for the great festive toot. I couldn't resist. We've never demoed these before in a in a live stream, so I couldn't resist. And once I started looking at considering doing the candy canes with the bow bead, then I was like, oh wait, there's all these other designs that have the bow beads. So yeah, I might have gone a little bit crazy with it, but they're all easy projects. So so why not do more of them? These are fun. I like the silver one too. I would wear that just as much as the gold one. Yeah, my focus isn't working as nicely as I would like it to today, but hopefully you guys are seeing everything that you need to see. All right, so that was the ribbons and wreaths earrings. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you guys. I did do a variation of this once. This is not a published design. It never ended up on the website or anything like that, but oh, they're two different ones. Oh, it's kind of delightful sometimes. I go fishing through the old designs and find things that I forgot all about. So this one, we did the same thing, just used I made a larger loop, and I suspended the bow with a little bit of crystal accent down at the bottom. And this one, I did the same thing with a large loop, but then instead of suspending a bow, I wire wrapped a bow to it at the bottom. So that was kind of fun. Those are both good variations for this idea. All right, last one we're gonna do is silver bells. I love these. They are one of my favorite little Christmas earring designs. They also have the bow, of course. You know what? Bear with me, guys. I wish I had done this earlier, but I'm wondering if I got some fingerprints on the lenses of my camera or something. Maybe that's why it's not focusing very well. So sorry about that. Just wanted to see if I could wipe it and get a little bit more clarity. It's still not really focusing like I like. So yes, the bow bead, and one of our cones. We call this, what do we call this? Bellflower cones. So originally these cones came in 3 sizes, a small and a medium and a large. We currently are producing just the large and the small. This design uses the largest one. So it's about 10 millimeters high, and that cone, that flower shape at the base is probably about 12 millimeters wide. This design uses a couple of red seed beads for the accent here, and also a 4 millimeter. In the original, we used pearls, but we've got these 4 millimeter alabaster, so we're going to use those for this design, just for simplicity. Again, I'm going to use a couple of little size 11 seed beads, and they are right here at the top. So it's just a little accent before you add the ear wire. So, and then this one calls for just our regular head pins. We could do this in gold as well, of course, but we'd have to change the name. The name of the design is Silver Bells Earring. So we could do it in gold, sure. But it just feels like we'd have to change the name. So I have 2 head pins. And the first thing I'm going to do with those, maybe I'll just do this kind of, I'll do both pairs kind of concurrently, just for the fun of it, just so we have a pair all done. I'm just stringing the white, the little white, what's going to be the, what do you call this with a bell? The bottom part that swings and makes the bell ring. There's a word for it. It's not coming to me, but that's what I'm making. And I'm going to, let's see. Yeah, I just need to make a little simple loop. So it's going to be, because I'm using the head pins, they're nice and sturdy. I don't need to do wrapped loop action. I can just do simple loops. So I'm going to bend that wire. I don't need to leave extra room here for my wire wrapping. I'm going to bend it right at the top of the little white bead. And I am going to protect the top of the bead with my thumbnail so that bending the wire doesn't crack it. Clapper. Thank you, Emily. I think you're right. That's what you call the little component of the bell that hits the side and makes it chime. So I want to make a very small little simple loop. So I'm going to only leave myself about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to trim my wire off. And then I'm going to use not my bent nose pliers. I'm going to use my my round nose pliers right at close to the front again, because I want that to just be a tiny little loop. You know, we cut ourselves just 1/4 of an inch, left us 1/4 of an inch of wire. So it's just a small little loop you're going to need in there. The smaller, the better, actually. Okay, so I have my 2 little clappers made. I'm confused about my instructions because it feels like it's missing something. I'm thinking that what I need is eye pins, and I don't think they're on this list. So if you want to download this instruction sheet, I need to go in and fix that because there should be eye pins on the list. So I'm just going to grab a couple of eye pins, and I guess I can do it this way. I'm going to open the loop on one of those eye pins and string on the little crystal dangle I just made. Do that with both of them. And then I'm going to take one of those and just string it right up into the opening of the cone. And then you can see, you can sort of adjust how, if your loops are very tiny, then this loop, the clapper is going to kind of tuck up right at the bottom of the bell, and that's going to work just fine. Not sure how well you guys can see that. If you make your loops too big, then this is going to be hanging way down below the bottom of the bell shape. So we don't want that. We want it to be really tucked up nicely in there. This might even be ever so slightly too long. So I'm not going to fix it right now, but to do that, I would cut off, you know what? Backtrack. I am going to do that so you guys can see if you want to adjust the length of how long that bell hangs down. I'm just going to trim a tiny bit of the wire off of the loop on the top of this dangle. Not very much, just about probably less than 2 millimeters. And then I'm just going to take my round nose pliers again and roll it down again. So it's just, I'm just adapting that loop to a slightly smaller one. Just trimmed off a little of the wire and re-rolled it so it could be just ever so slightly smaller. And then that will tuck the clapper up into the bell a little bit more, because I think that that's good. I don't think it's hard to show you guys because it hangs underneath. So every time I try to show you, it's hanging down underneath and you guys can't see it. So that's it for the clapper and the little bell. The next thing we do is just string on one of the red crystals, and then I'm going to string on one of those tiny little size 11 beads, and I'm going to fold that over right at the top of that second size 11 bead, and I'm going to trim my wire to make another simple loop. This one, the size of it is kind of designer's choice. It does not have to be particularly small, doesn't have to be particularly big. It's just what you're going to be attaching the your wire to. That's how, whoops. Okay, I did all that, you guys. And I was thinking, it looks kind of naked. What's wrong? I forgot to put the bow on. All right. Take it apart. So I just needed a second, another head eye pin. To repair that, or to redo it, I guess I should say. Okay, one more time. Up into the bell, a red crystal, now the bow bead, and a little size 11 seed bead. That looks better, right? It was looking not very interesting. It took me a second to realize what I'd forgotten. All right. And just roll a simple loop up the top there and add your wire. You could, if you prefer to use wrapped loops, absolutely use wrapped loops. But this is just a kind of a very simple construction. So, and we're using the head pins instead of the craft wire, so it's sturdy enough. You know, craft wire is so soft that I find I almost always use a wrapped loop if I'm using craft wire. But with the head pins, you can use a simple. And I'm adjusting the size of my the loop on my clapper, so I can tuck it up in there a little bit tighter. Up into the bell. Whoops. Red bead and then bow bead. You guys, I am just upside down today. Look, on the originals, it's bell, bow, crystal. With this one, I did bell, crystal, bow. I actually think that's okay. All right, so we just made a variation because I wasn't paying attention to the instructions. But it looks kind of okay. I like it. So I think that you could do this either way. You can do it with the red crystal bell right up at the top, or you can do it with the red crystal in between the two. Oops, how come? I'm sorry. Kristen said I'm sorry I'm late when she came in, and somehow her comment got highlighted. So we've just been broadcasting that the whole time. Kristen, sorry about that. Or Kirsten, it looks like. Nobody would have noticed except that I highlighted that comment from all that time. So, yeah, I don't think that's a bad variation at all with the crystal in between. And again, that last little step, just adding the ear wire. Kirsten, thank you. We all have those days. Yep. We sure do. So fun. I kind of like that we just ended up doing an unintentional variation, and I like it just fine. I think that I would wear those either way. So you see those ones are pretty easy too. I am going to adjust, make the correction to my downloadable project sheet. So if you guys decide to download that one, it will be accurate. So, and on the original ear wires, I also used our big French hoop ear wire, which those are fun too. If you prefer those, definitely use those. Usually the ear wires that I have handy on my demo table are just the regular French hooks, not French hoops, but French hooks. So I also like that the candy cane in gold looks really good, I think. Here's the silver ones just for comparison. This one I'm noticing has a couple of little variations too. I started this one with a small 3mm crystal. I might have been out of the white alabaster crystal, so I ended up using 3mm crystal ABs at the top and bottom of this one. Sometimes you have to adapt a design based on what you've got in your work area, right? So that's how delightful variations are born. So I think yay! I think these all came out good, and they're all easy, and you guys could have a lot of fun with them. You could do, variations. Do these in silver and gold. Switch up the crystal colors, and just make them for all your friends. It'll be fun. I think we probably can squeeze in a real quick. I just want to see how these look. I don't think I've ever done them before. I just want to see how they look with some size 6 seed beads. And I'm talking about the candy cane specifically. I didn't have any plain white 6mm seed beads. So these are actual little kind of color-lined triangle beads, but I think they'll do the job. They'll at least show us, demonstrate whether or not we can do this with the size 6 seed beads. I am going to use craft wire again, just because I have this piece cut, might as well use it up. So I'm going to do that little head pin out of craft wire trick. Made a little wrap, about 3 loops around, and then just going to pull that wire through it. And 2 pair of pliers is handy here, because you can, what you're doing is you're pulling with one and you're pushing the loop, keeping it down at the bottom with the other. So there we go. All right, I've got my length of craft wire. I'm going to start with a red, white, red, and then a bow. This piece of wire is a little bit longer than it needs to be, but that's okay. White, red, white, red, white. And then in the original pattern, this last bead is a 3mm, but I'm just trying it with, I'm sticking with the same size. We'll see how it works. So I'm going to bend my wire over again. I'm leaving myself a little space here because now I'm going to make my, this is where this pattern might get tricky. These triangle white beads are a little bit bigger around, so I'm not going to be able to fold my hook over quite as much because they need all that space. So it's going to be a slightly less, oops, I do want to add that little seed bead at the end though. It's going to be a slightly less curved hook. Oops, wrong end. Yes, no, wrong end, no, correct end. Everything's just moving. All my beads are moving. All right, last little seed bead, and finish that with either a tiny little wrapped loop or a just like coil it around a few times. And Leah, are our ear wires nickel free? I believe so. I'd have to double check that for you to make sure. But I'm pretty darn sure they are. So this is a little seed bead version. I might, because, well, in a perfect world, I would have had some 6mm plain white seed beads, but I had these triangle ones, which have a wider kind of diameter overall. And also because they're a little bit chunkier, I might add some length. I might maybe have added a couple more beads to the pattern just so that the candy cane is a little longer. But it's cute. Definitely an option. If you don't have the crystal beads, might be fun to try this with the size 6 seed beads. So just alternating red and white. So definitely a possibility. And that right up on 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. So I'm glad you guys caught that we did a time change. I am going to stick with this time change and do 11 a.m. on Tuesday mornings instead of 10. Just adjustments to my schedule make that a better time for us now. So hopefully you guys will continue to find me, and hopefully I can continue to inspire you. So thank you. I do have something in mind for next week, so stay tuned for that. I'll make the event on Friday, and it will show up in all the places it needs to. And hopefully I'll see you then. In the meantime, have a wonderful week and make lots of stuff, and be well. Bye.